In this video, we will learn how to use MongoDB with R programming language. So we will create a database, we will perform different operations in R, we will write different queries. And to use MongoDB with R, we will install a package named MongoLite. Before we begin with installation of MongoLite, let's start MongoDB and Robo 3D. So we will create our database in MongoDB and we will visualize our database in Robo 3D, and we will write queries and perform different operations in R. In the previous video, we learned how to download, install, and configure MongoDB, and we also explored a little bit of Robo 3D. So if you haven't done that, you should see that video first before proceeding forward. Now let's start MongoDB. We also learned in the previous video that you have to go wherever you have installed your MongoDB. You have to go to that folder, and then inside the MongoDB folder you have to go till the bin folder. So this is the path that you have to go when you want to start your MongoDB, and we will click on this file MongoD, and we will run this file and our MongoDB will start. So it has successfully started. Let's open Robo 3D. So this is the connection that we made last time. To check, let's delete it this time, and let's create a new connection. Let's name it localhost for now. This is the default port of MongoDB, 27017. Let's test this connection. Yes, it's connected. We're going to save it and we will connect it, and you can see it has appeared here. Now let's open RStudio. To install the MongoLite package to use with R, go to your console in RStudio and type install.packages and type MongoLite. Press enter and the installation will begin. Alright, so it's installed successfully. Okay, before diving into the code, let's see a few things first. Let's look at three terminologies associated with NoSQL databases before we move forward. So if you are familiar with SQL databases, for example, you must be aware that this is a table, right? So this is a table, and these are the columns of the table, and for example, these are the rows or the table of the table, and we also sometimes call them as record or one row, right? Okay, so when we talk about NoSQL databases, this table is referred as a collection. So table is, you can think of table as a collection. So we don't have tables there, right? We have collections instead. And a record or a row is, you can think of it as a document. So there are no rows, rather there are several documents in the collection. And then when we talk about column, you can think of column as, we refer to it as a field, right? So these three things, you should know these three things. Now let's create a new R script and create our database. First of all, we will import the library MongoLite. Then we will create our database instance Mongo. Here we have to provide it two things. The first argument is of the name of the collection that we want to put in the database at the start, and the second argument is the URL of our database. So first of all, let's say we want to name our collection, let's say benders. So this is from the avatar, fire benders and water benders and so on. So this is that benders. This is just a name that I'm giving my collection, nothing else. You can name it on your own name. You can do whatever, you can write whatever you want, right? I'm just gonna name it benders. And then we have to give it the URL. So there is a particular format of the URL, and it's like this: MongoDB : // and here we will write the IP, the default IP, so 0.0.1. Then we will write the port, and port is the one that was present in Robo 3T, the default port of MongoDB, and it's actually, let's see, this is the port 27017, right? So we will write 27017 and / and then we have to write the name of the database that we want to create. So you can name it anything. I'm gonna put my name here. This is the name of my database. You can give it whatever name you want. So this should create our database, right? But to create the database, you have to insert at least one document in it at the start. Otherwise it doesn't create it. So to insert the document, we will write $insert, and inside this function we will insert different fields. So let's say we want to name the fields as name. I have to enclose it in quotation marks. So name is Ang. Let's enter this name first. Again, I forgot to write quotation marks, comma, and let's say the second field, second column, if you want to think of it like a structured database. Otherwise we should call it field. So the second field is, let's say, jutsu, and the jutsu is, what's the jutsu of Ang, the avatar? It was air, right? We'll close the curly braces, close the single quotation mark, and then this is the round bracket, closing round bracket. So this should create our database named this. It should have a collection named benders, and it should have one document in it which with these fields, right? Let's see what happens. Let's run this file. And let's see if our database is updated or not. Refresh it, and there we can see we have our first database. You can open it, you can open the collections, and here we can see we have a collection named benders. You can open this collection and we can see there is a document inside this collection. Let's go with the with the table view. This is the table view, so you can see the name as Ang, the jutsu as air. This is what we wrote there. You can also see it in the JSON notation. So this is the JSON notation, name and jutsu, and this is actually the ID. It will be a unique ID. So ta-da, we have created our first database and our first collection as well as our first document. Now that we have done this, let's insert some more some more documents in our database. So I'm just gonna copy this and we will change it to Zuko. His jutsu was fire, and then I'm gonna add Katara. Her jutsu was water. Let's add Toph. Her jutsu was earth. So now let's source this file and see if all of these fields are added or not. And obviously I added this once, so I think this should be added again, right? Let's see. All right, let's refresh our database and open this collection again. Here we can see that those rows are added, and obviously ang is added again because that script was run again. And you can also see that in the JSON view. Right, so now we have learned how to create and connect a database and how to insert different documents inside it. Now let's write code to find specific fields in the documents, which is also called as projection. And whatever the result is, let's store it in a variable result. So let's write our query. Let's say that we want to find all the documents with only these fields, and the fields should be, let's say, just name in inverted commas. So this is the pattern, this is how we write it. Name 1. And then we will close it in curly braces. Oh, so this curly brace actually comes here. Right? And now let's source it. And I think we should comment these out so that they're not added to the database again. This should fetch us just the name field. Let's see what happens. And yeah, we have to display it as well. Obviously. Print result. So here we can see the output as, so it has displayed two fields, name and ID. So ID is always displayed by default. So if you if you don't want ID to be displayed, you should write here, comma, underscore ID colon 0. If you write that, the ID won't be displayed. Let's run it again. Now you can see this time just the names are displayed, not the ID, because we have put it as 0. So it is always displayed by default. If you want to remove it, you can use this, right? Now let's display the documents which match a specific condition. So again, for that we'll write result equals to $find. You can change the name of this variable as well if you want. $find, and inside it, so last time we left this empty because we were not putting any specific condition. But this time we will add something here. We won't leave these braces empty. Okay, so let's write a condition that display only those records whose jutsu is fire. And display name fields of those records. Let's just copy paste it. So this query should display just Zuko. Let's see our database. So this query should just display this document. We should actually add another document in it with the jutsu as fire. We should do that. Let's do that. Okay, let's first run this query, and then we will add another, we will insert another document in it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we didn't print the result. Let's just move it here. So yeah, Zuko is displayed. Let's add one more document with the jutsu as fire. So what was the name of another Fire Nation person? Yeah, so the Zuko's sister was Azula. Let's add her name. And now source it. So let's see our database. Refresh it. Open the collection again. And we can see, yeah, Azula is added here. And in the output here, Azula is displayed as well, because now there are two documents whose who match this particular condition, whose jutsu is fire. We can see that here. This is fire and this is fire. So the name of these two documents, the name field of these two documents is displayed. So there you go. Let's learn how to remove or delete a single document from the database. And for that we will use the remove function, just like we use the find function. So let's say r equals to $remove, and we will write curly braces here, just like we used in R, and we can write some certain condition to match here, but I'm going to leave it empty for now. It's the same as it was used in find, just like we used it here to match a condition. Right, so I'm going to leave it empty for now. And then we have a parameter just_1. And this parameter that is actually false by default, but we have to make it true if we want to delete a single document. Otherwise, it will delete all the documents. So let's comment these lines as well. Otherwise, another row with the name Azula will be entered, will be inserted. Let's comment these out too for now. Alright, so actually for now, this is our code. We are creating the connection and we are removing one single line from the document. So this line will actually remove the whichever line it will find. So it will actually remove the top document, the document which is on the top in the database, right? And right now this is our database. There are 6 objects in it, and there are 2 objects which has the same name, ang. So this line, the line with which we just wrote in R, should delete this first object, first document from our database. Let's see what happens. Let's run our program. Now let's see what happened with our database. We have to refresh it. We have to open our collection again, obviously. And now, yes, we can see that the first document with the name ang is deleted. We have 5 documents in our database now. Right, so we have successfully deleted one document. Now let's learn how to delete all the documents. To delete all the documents, we will just remove this parameter, or we will make it false. Let's see, do that too. let's run the code and let's see what happened in the database now. So there are 0 records, no record found. So we have deleted all the documents. If you want to display all the documents, we can just use that find function to our benefit. So we can write docs equals to, let's say, $find, and now we will leave this empty. So it will match all the documents. It will bring all the documents and save it in docs, and then we can just print docs. But remember, right now our database is empty because we just deleted everything with this line, right? So we have to insert all the documents again. So I'm going to uncomment it so that all the documents will be inserted one by one, and then they will be displayed one by one here. Let's run it. Here we can see all of them are displayed and both fields are displayed. If you want just one field, you can do what we just did here in projection. This will just display the name field. But if you want to display all the fields, you can print them or display them like this. Just leave it empty. Don't add anything. So there you go. Now if you want to get help in this library and you want to see different other functions, you can also print m. So let's comment these out, or rather just let them be. So let's comment these out so that they are not added again, and let's see what happens when we write print. This actually gives you a list of functions that you can use, right? Let's see. So it is giving you a whole list of functions that you can use, and also their parameters, whatever you want to put in them. So there are many functions that you can choose from here. Now that we have learned the basics of MongoDB through our programming language, we have learned how to create a database, how to insert, delete, and display different documents. So now let's learn how to insert the documents through the proper R programming way. So actually we will be using the data frames. Let's see how will we do it. So first of all, obviously we will import the library MongoLite, and then we will create a connection with our database using the function Mongo, as we discussed before in the previous video. And this function, as I told you before, this function has 2 arguments. The first one is the name of a collection. So this time let's keep the name of our collection as users. And the second argument is actually URL, and it has a particular format. So we will be following that. It is MongoDB :2// and then the IP name 127.0.0.1, and then we will write the port name. The default port of MongoDB is 27017, and then the name of our database will come. So you can write whatever name you want to give to your database. After that, we have to insert some document in it. So to do that, let's first create a data frame, and to create a data frame, let's first create 2 vectors. So we will be using 2 fields. We will insert 2 fields in our document. So the first field is name. First of all, let's create a vector of names. So let's say we have certain names. And then let's create another vector named age. So we have 2 vectors, name and age, and we'll add them in our data frame. Let's call it df, and we can do that. We have learned that before. We can do that by writing data.frame name, age. We don't need 2 round brackets. So these are our two vectors, and using these two vectors we created this data frame here with the name df. Now let's insert this data frame in our database. So the name of the database object is m. We will write m dollar insert df. This will insert these documents in the database. So these are actually 5 documents. 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are 6. We should have one more. Let's see. 6 documents in our database. Let's see. Let's run our code and let's see what happened in Robo 3D. Let's refresh. We will open this. We will open collections. Now you can see we have added one more collection with the name users. We just added it. We just run that code, and that code actually resulted in the addition of this collection. Double click on this, and here we can see these names have been added. And we just actually added a data frame. So it automatically added all these documents. So I think this is much more easy rather than inserting each and every document one by one. So this is better when we are using R programming. This is the proper way to do it in R. Let's learn how to read data from a CSV file in R programming language and how to insert data in MongoDB from a CSV file. So let's begin. So I have a CSV file named as dummy dataset. We will use that. Let's run our file. So we can see that our file is successfully loaded, successfully read, and these are the 5 fields or 5 columns in our file, named as name, occupation, age, gender, and hobby. You can also display the complete file if you want, like this. So you can see the complete file here. If there are any spaces in the name of fields, the name of columns, we have to remove them first. But since there are no spaces, that's not necessary right now. But if you want to remove the spaces, the function for that is this. This will remove all the spaces if there were any from the names. We should actually add a space and then let's see. Let me do that. So I've added spaces in it. Now let's see. You can see there is a space here and another space here. But after running this function here on this line, there are no more spaces. Now let's add this data in MongoDB. Let's insert in the database. Let's name our database as dummy. We should change the name of collection. call it person record, and the name of the database is dummy. We have not written quotation marks here. So, and add the dummy data, the data that we just loaded. Now let's run it. Now let's open our Robo 3D, refresh it. You can see a dummy dataset has been added here. You can click on it, open collections. So the collection is person record, which we just added. And you can see the records are added here. Successfully, you can see the JSON format for them as well. And you can see the records are total 4 records. You can also display the count here in R by writing dummy collection $count. We'll actually have to print it. And I'm going to commit this so that the data is not inserted again. You can see that count is 4. So there you go. We have done it successfully.